Guys, I don't know if DMX was a student of Arthur Schopenhauer, but he should have been.
Just gon' give me head for free, cause they see who I'ma be by like 2003. And nigga D took it there. He thought it was a joke. He ran through like 20 G's. Thought that I was broke.
I gotta say something here. Schopenhauer identified the sexual impulse as the strongest, most direct manifestation of the will to live, right? You know, it's the trick that nature plays on us to perpetuate the cycle of existence. So DMX notes right here that access to sex is granted instantly based on his rising power. Family, I find it phenomenal how many people I ask got introduced to DMX via dark times. You know, so people will say, "Oh, I was in a dark time in my life, and I was listening to DMX, and or people figured out who he was through some dark avenue, and the same is the case for me. You know, my mother and father split up when I was 6 years old, and a couple of years after that, I was a mama's boy, but my big brother wasn't. He would kind of lock himself in his room and listen to hip hop, right? And I wasn't even into hip hop at the time. I became fascinated by rap and hip hop because of my brother's isolation and the music that would come out of his room. One of those rappers was DMX. My brother left the house. I would go in there and I would steal his CDs and I would listen to his CDs in the Walkman, and DMX was one of those. It was always kind of frightening to listen. It was as a kid, you know what I mean? And, as a philosopher, it reminds me of the philosophy of Arthur Schopenhauer. I have a theory that Schopenhauer's philosophy and DMX's philosophy, specifically on It's Dark and Hell is Hot, go together like peas and carrots. Family, hear me out. Without any further ado, we're going to get right into it. Like, comment, share, subscribe. And we are going to break this down in terms of Schopenhauer's thoughts and DMX's lyrics. Hear me out. You might just learn something, family.
You know what I'm saying? These rough rider niggas.
Dog.
I heard these niggas is for real.
Dog.
Uh-huh.
That's my man.
But I heard these niggas supposed to be locking down the industry on some shit, on some power shit.
Dog. That's my man's in there.
See, a lot of people didn't understand this intro. I was one of the ones. I was like, what are you talking about? You got this guy who seems to be talking to himself. Hey, I heard this about the Rough Riders and I heard that they're on some power, And then DMX is like, dog, that's my man's in them. Why does this kind of keep repeating? I'm going to try to let you guess. Leave it in the comments below if you have some estimation as to what's going on between these two characters. But I'm going to reveal what I think in just a second.
So what I'm doing,
right,
my man's in them is doing. Because that's my man's in them.
Hear me out. This back and forth, right, is about what you heard, right? And somebody living it. A lot of rappers talk about, hey, you're rapping something that I'm actually living. So this character is saying, I heard the Rough Riders, I heard this and I heard that. DMX is like, yo, whatever you heard is what is actually happening over here, right? There's a difference between the hypothetical and the actual. Let's talk about it.
I feel you.
Now you feel me.
I feel you.
Why must you be hard-headed?
Why must you be hard-headed? That line, why must you be hard-headed, is definitely a flex. He's almost talking to the entire industry as if they're children and he's like a disappointed parent, right? Listen to this.
Tried to explain. She didn't hear me though. Now?
Why must you be hard-headed?
Now, let's let you. I must. But I want to. One, two, come through, run through. Gun who? Oh, you don't know what the gun do? Some do, those that know are real quiet. Let me think you wanna try it, fuck around and start a ride.
Okay, hear me out, right? How does this relate to Arthur Schopenhauer, right? Schopenhauer argued that the majority of human existence is governed by the will rather than the intellect. Remember the beginning of this track. Somebody saying, oh, he's intellectualized this. I heard this and I heard that. And X is like, this is what I do. You're standing in front of it, right? The will, according to Schopenhauer, doesn't speak, it acts. violently and instantly. So DMX notes, those that know are real quiet. This is kind of the chilling silence of pure lethal intent. In Schopenhauer's framework, words are a function of the intellect, but violence and survival, oh, those are functions of the raw will. When the intellect fails to perceive the danger, right, you don't know what the gun do. The underlying chaos of existence breaks through immediately. Guys, I'm gonna go back a couple bars. I'm gonna let him cook, right? We're going DMX, Arthur Schopenhauer, showing how kind of the philosophies, at least on this track, is the same. Start a riot.
Niggas gon' buy it regardless, because I'm the hardest rap artist, and I'ma start to get up for real, get up and feel my words. I make curves spit up and squeal.
Listen. It's what you hear and listen. It's what you hear and listen. X demands that the listener get up and feel my words, right? Schopenhauer believed that conventional logic and language are superficial, but art, specifically music, bypasses that intellect and speaks directly to the core of human suffering. So DMX is not asking you to analyze his lyrics intellectually. He's forcing you to feel the heavy, painful reality. And that's what Arthur Schopenhauer calls will. The absolute predictability of human consumption, right? It was like he says, he's going to buy it regardless, right? And that kind of mirrors Arthur Schopenhauer's view that humans are hopelessly enslaved to their baseline desires and impulses, right? It's the same, bro.
It's all I've been hearing lately. Niggas hate me when I duct tape me and make me put their brains on the wall when I brawl. Too late for that
911 call.
Stay beefing, but a lot of them bluff. And not me, cause I'm a nigga that can get out of them cuffs. Think a lot of them stuff, that's just the front. When I hit them niggas like, what you want? The battle turns into a hunt.
The battle turns into a hunt, right? For Schopenhauer, most of human society is like a grand farce. It's a fragile kind of front constructed to hide our terrifying vulnerability and our inner malice. So DMX exposes the bluff of that societal toughness, right? When he strips away the social conditioning with a direct confrontation, right? What you want. The battle turns into a hunt, right? X represents the apex predator because his will is entirely uninhibited, easily breaking through any artificial constraints of society, right? And he says, get out of them cuffs. I'm the one who can get out of them cuffs. He's like, look, all of that stuff is artificial. The power of the will is the only thing that's absolute. Him and Schopenhauer completely agree. Let's continue.
I had the dog right behind niggas, chasing them down. We all knew that you was pussy, but I'm tasting it now. And never give a dog blood, cause dog blood, I have a dog like blood, fighting whatever, all up in your gut. Give it to them all like that. And ain't no love, I do them all like that. Fall right up in their back, clack, clack. Close your eyes, baby, it's over, forget it. Happens in front of your building, but nobody knows who did it.
Nobody knows who did it. See, listen, Schopenhauer's pessimism concludes that life is essentially valueless, full of sound and fury signifying nothing. So DMX's execution is cold, it's mechanical, and it's like devoid of sentimentality, right? He says, ain't no love. I do them all like that. The absolute finality of death. Close your eyes, baby, it's over, forget it. He's saying all these things, and the complete indifference of the surrounding world. He says, nobody knows who did it. That captures the Schopenhauerian view of cosmic apathy, right? An individual life is snuffed out in broad daylight, and the universe doesn't even blink. Guys, if I would say that anything computes really well, like philosophically, to it's dark and hell is hot, it's Schopenhauer's philosophy. We're going to go track for track. We gonna go track for track. Damn, dog, why you have to do them like that? See, I know a lot of X verses. Let's continue.
Where my dogs at? 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 Niggas is pussies, keep you running from the werewolf. Howling at the moon on the roof. No! Get him. 10 niggas on him. Hope God's with him.
This is kind of what X is known for, right? Those kind of those elements where you just kind of get street sounds in the background and a lot of chaos. X fully embraces the archetype of the monster, the werewolf, howling at the moon, right? By framing himself as a creature driven entirely by the lunar cycle and the primal instinct, right? He shirks off human morality, let's say. When he commands his collective to swarm an individual, he says, 10 niggas on him, hope God's with him. He's illustrating Schopenhauer's concept of the sheer vulnerability of the individual against the mob, against the collective force of nature. We remember this from Stop, Drop. He's like, oh, you ain't met the, it's like, you think you holding weight, then you haven't met the apes, right? Same thing. The individual against the collective. God is absent. Only the physical forces of destruction remain. And I know that saying God is absent is not necessarily, in line with DMX's, but DMX is a religious man, respectfully. Let's continue.
Give me the back, let me split him. I have him with a pillow when the casket won't fit him. Only reason I did him, he wouldn't fight back. But to strike back, left him like that. Laying up with the white right, hitting right back at you. When I snatch him, up out the grave, nothing but bones and ashes. Hitting niggas with gashes to the head, straight to the white meat, but the streets stay red.
Split him to the white meat, but the street stay red? Did he say the street? Guys, even the grave provides no sanctuary from the cycle of violence in the X's world, right? Snatch you up out the grave. And this aligns heavily with Schopenhauer's concept of palingenesis, right? The idea that while individual entities die, the core underlying will to live cannot be destroyed. It simply returns in new violent forms to suffer all over again. Family, the imagery of the street staying red emphasizes that while individuals decay into bones and ashes, the collective field of human suffering remains permanently active. Guys, I don't know if DMX was a student of Arthur Schopenhauer, but he should have been.
Strong, give me head for free, cause they see who I'ma be by like 2003. A nigga D took it there. He thought it was a joke, he ran through like 20 G's. Thought that I was broke.
I gotta say something here. Schopenhauer identified the sexual impulse as the strongest, most direct manifestation of the will to live, right? It's the trick that nature plays on us to perpetuate the cycle of existence. So DMX notes right here that access to sex is granted instantly based on his rising power. Guys, I think I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong in the comments. Is this correlation accurate?
Stupid, that's what you get for thinking. And eventually found that's what you get for stinking. Blowing up the spot when you rock. Plus, if it gets hot, I know you dead for 4 square blocks. Come on, hit him with the ox to the grill. Kill, nigga, kill. Yet still, you don't know I'm a robber. That nigga DMX is a motherfucking problem. Alright?
I don't know if X has a single song that's not iconic at this point. I mean, listen, family, the final bars of that drop all pretense of artistic nuance. He reduces existence to its absolute mechanical foundation. Kill, nigga, kill. This repetitive, involuntary chant, it's kind of represents the will when it's completely detached, let's say, from reason. Right? DMX concludes by identifying himself not as a person, but as a motherfucking problem, an active, living disruption of anybody trying to survive. Bro, this one was wild. Guys, this was fun. Let me know if we should keep going down the Schopenhauer rabbit hole. I think Schopenhauer speaks to this entire album. If Schopenhauer was cruising around like today, he would be blasting DMX, right? He's the ultimate realization of Schopenhauer's philosophy, DMX is. A man who has looked into the dark abyss of existence, recognized its inherent cruelty, and then chosen to become the most dangerous force within it. Respectfully.